If my tone doesn't give it away, I was not impressed. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video, we are going to be looking at my worst books according to Goodreads. Alright, before I get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what is the worst book that you've read according to Goodreads. So I've seen these videos floating around for quite some time now, and I thought they were a lot of fun, but I just kept putting off filming it. However, finally, we're here, we're gonna do it. I have gone to my Goodreads page and I've sorted based on average rating, and we're gonna see what are the 10 worst books I've read according to Goodreads and compare that to my ratings for these books. I am planning to also do the best books I've read according to Goodreads, which will be coming out here next. So we're gonna start at number 10. The 10th worst book I've read according to Goodreads is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. Honestly, I find that really hilarious. It currently has an average rating of 3.36 stars. I gave this 4 stars. I actually really liked this. I think it's because the synopsis that is sold for this book gives you a certain expectation going in, and this book kind of takes that and flips it on its head. I totally understand why a lot of people would be annoyed by that, but personally I really enjoyed that aspect of it. However, I do know some books where that situation has caused me to rate a book worse. In this story, we are following this teenager who he and his friends go to a movie, and they actually end up buying a ticket for a mannequin. Go inside, they set up the mannequin, and they think it's going to be this big joke whenever their friend comes through to check tickets and see, oh, haha, it's a mannequin. But at the end of the movie, the mannequin stands up and walks out of the theater. Like I said, that's the synopsis given for this book, but it really doesn't go the way you're anticipating. However, I really enjoy that. I think Stephen Graham Jones nails the main character's voice in the story. It's also just really weird for me because I actually know exactly where this book is set. I've literally been there numerous times, so I could perfectly picture everything he was talking about, the setting he had laid out. I knew exactly what he was saying, and he fit it so perfectly, which I think added to my enjoyment of the book. So in this case, I disagree. I think this book should not be on my worst books of Goodreads. Coming in at number 9 is Phaedra by Laura Shepperson. I actually read this for my second 5x5 Greek retellings, and I'll put a link to that in the cards. Unfortunately, I actually ended up DNFing this one. Basically, we were supposed to be following the story of Phaedra, the younger sister of the Minotaur. Specifically, we're seeing her life after she is introduced to Perseus. The thing that was really funky though with this book is rather than Phaedra actually being the main character in the story, you alternate between perspectives of all these different women, some of whom we see from once, some of them we see from multiple times. However, I didn't really feel like the author's writing reflected the different voices for each of these characters. All of them sort of felt the same. On top of that, Phaedra just read incredibly young. I totally understood that she is supposed to be a lot younger than Perseus, who she ends up marrying, but she read like a 12-year-old, and it was just so uncomfortable. Now that this book has been out for a little bit longer, I've checked out reviews and I see more of what the story was actually setting up. And even with that, I didn't really want that sort of a story from this. And then on top of that, she didn't feel like a driving force in her own story, which is something I have learned I don't really enjoy either. Another woman we see from is Medea, who is also often a vilified character. And even with her perspective, I felt like most of the time she was more being utilized to further the story surrounding Perseus. I don't want that. Like, I went into this wanting a feminist retelling with the women being the sole focus of the story, but rather it felt as though the men were still taking center stage. We were just seeing everything through the eyes of the women. So this has an average rating of 3.33 stars, and I DNF'd it, which technically means I have it unrated, but I do agree this should probably be on my worst books. Next up is 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards with an average rating of 3.32 stars. I believe I gave this 3 stars. It's a fine YA thriller. It's set in a blizzard, which I guess that aspect of it was pretty interesting. I didn't really like any of the characters. I honestly thought the person who it was kind of predictable. That's just kind of all I really remember about this book. Nothing else about it stands out, so I could see it being down here. Coming in at number 7 is one I'm actually gonna have to look up because I don't remember what this story was. The Country of the Kind by Damon Knight with 3.29 stars. This is a sci-fi short story that I read for a class in college. I do remember this one. Essentially, in this society, all crime has been completely eradicated, and if anybody is ever caught committing a crime, there are 3 main factors that signify them as such that allows society to completely ignore them, never interact with them. And we're watching as this man who was a criminal experiences all of these things. It was fine. I really don't remember it at all. I mean, it's like 27 pages. It's fine that it's down here. I don't feel particularly strong about it either. So I guess I could see it being a 2.5 or a 3-star read. Coming in at number 6 is The Flip Side by James Bailey with an average rating of 3.28 stars. So this was a romance book that I picked up because I thought it was very interesting that it was written by a man, and I hadn't really seen that before and decided, you know, why not? I'll give it a try. Oh, I should clarify, a heterosexual romance that was written by a man. However, this is not a romance book. I've seen the critique before for romance books that are written by women, more so focusing on the female main character growing, changing, all that sort of stuff, and how that really should be labeled as women's fiction. This is basically that exact same issue, but this should be men's fiction. You're just following this dude after he has a really terrible day. He gets kicked out of his apartment. He breaks up with his girlfriend. He loses his job because he was working for his girlfriend's dad. And you're seeing how he slowly starts to put his life back together. He wins some game show and gets like 3,000 pounds, which is not a lot of money, and decides that he's going to dedicate that 3,000 pounds to try and finding this girl who he had a 30-minute conversation with, and is so incredibly certain that she is his forever girl. She is his new love. If my tone doesn't give it away, I was not impressed. I also DNF'd this. I was buddy reading this with Michelle for the first rom-comathon. She ended up finishing it and telling me, no, it is not worth it. Don't bother pushing through. So I gave up. I also feel like this probably belongs down here. Coming in at number 5 is one that I actually don't think should be this low. Meet Cute Club by Jack Harbin. This is a queer romance story in which we're following this man who runs a romance-based book club, and one day he goes to buy a bunch of the books for his book club. Guy at the register ends up kind of poking fun at him for reading romance books. He snaps back, and the cashier ends up deciding that, hey, I want to check out this book club, mostly because he wants to hit on the main character. Honestly, it was fine. Like, I have no real grievance with this book. It was cute, it was fairly short, it was a little steamy. Was it the best romance book I've ever read? No. I believe I gave this 3, maybe 3.5 stars. However, I don't think this is worse than The Flip Side or 5 Total Strangers, honestly. Yes, I gave 5 Total Strangers and this book 3 stars, but honestly, I think this one is above 5 Total Strangers because at least it was cute. Next up at number 4, we have Sorry Not Sorry by Sonia Singh with an average rating of 3.16 stars. I actually got an arc of this from NetGalley because I saw a cartoon romance cover, and then there was a cute punny title. Of course, I was automatically intrigued. That was all I really knew going into this, and after starting it, if I had just read the synopsis, I probably would have known I wasn't gonna want this book. In this story, we were following a girl who is Indian but has spent the entirety of her life in a very Americanized family. She is really starting to feel disconnected from her roots, and when a photo for a business magazine whitewashes her, she realizes she really should get back in touch with her roots. She runs a business in which she breaks up with people for clients via email. There's a whole explanation as to why they do it. I don't really agree with it at all, and it felt really weird from the get-go. She ends up meeting the love interest, a Indian man who has actively been dating a white woman, but he wants to temporarily break up with his girlfriend so that he can go to I think it's his little brother's wedding without the judgment of being the oldest son in an Indian family dating a white girl, which right there just sounds like an Am I the Asshole post waiting to be written. I didn't even hit this point, but the summary talked about them striking a deal where she will write a temporary breakup letter for him and his girlfriend, try to ensure they get back together at the end of it, and she will be his date to the Indian wedding so that she can learn more about her Indian heritage. This one, pretty quickly I realized, was not interested. I also didn't really like the writing style. It was very dialogue heavy, and the dialogue did not feel sincere. It didn't feel realistic, so I think I DNF'd this like 20% in. I wasn't even far enough in to have got through the entirety of the synopsis yet, so yeah. Also think this should probably be down here, and clearly I'm in good company. One that I don't think should be this far down is Loathe at First Sight by Suzanne Park at number 3 with an average rating of 3.14 stars. This is the perfect example of one of those books that is sold as a romance but really is more of a women's fiction. We're following a woman who works at a video game company, hears her boss say some really sexist things, and then unfortunately gets her boss's nephew, one of those, put on a team for the new video game that she is trying to create. I was promised a enemies to lovers element between those two characters, which, yes, that is a thing that happens, but really, majority of this book is more focused on this character kind of dealing with sexism, especially in a male-dominated job, the creation of the video game, and how she ends up ensuring its success. There is the romance element that goes on as well, but it's really not that prevalent. I liked this well enough. I think I gave it 3, maybe 3.5 stars. This was just a perfect example of I was promised romance, and that's not what I got, so I was upset about it, and my rating reflects that. Perhaps that's why the rating is so low, is because other people also had that same issue, which I could understand. Listen, I get it that marketers want to try and get this book out to as many people as possible, but like, at least promise them the right thing, or else you get situations like these. Next, at number 2, is one that I'm not really shocked is down here. Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas with an average rating of 3.11 stars. I gave this 2 stars because nothing happens in this book. I went back and forth about reading this book a lot because I knew it was quite divisive. I had heard it was pretty boring, and honestly, like, that right there kind of intrigued me. It's a dark academia story in which we are following this girl who is admitted to Catherine House, a very prestigious free college, but you are completely cut off from the outside world. And she sort of starts to investigate this mysterious substance that a lot of the school is obsessed with. It was weird. It did not go anywhere. You get no real resolution to any of the mystery, and I was mad that I finished it. So yeah, 2 stars, not surprised it's down here. I do know some people really enjoy this book though because of the vibes. That's awesome. I have books like that too. This is not one of them. And then finally, is a book that I'm honestly not really surprised is down here just because I've never heard anybody else talk about it. At number 1, we have The Night Gwen Stacy Died by Sarah Bruni at a 3.07 star rating. I actually DNF'd this book. This was a book club read for my personal book club that I do with a few friends. And when Gwen Stacy is listed, you assume it's going to have some links to the Marvel Universe, to comic books, but really no, this is a contemporary story where we are following this girl, lives in a small town, hates her life, wants to get away from there, and ends up meeting this guy at her gas station job who is named Peter Parker. Fairly certain that was not his actual name. I think she was like 15, 16, and he was like 20, but eventually they end up running away together, and then you're just following their story. Once I realized that's what was happening in the book, I immediately lost interest and ended up putting this down. So not super surprised this is down here. As I said, it's not very popular. With that sort of a setup, I'm not super shocked that other people were given the ick as well. Alright, so that is the 10 worst books I have read according to Goodreads, and for the most part it seems that I agree with most Goodreads readers, excluding Stephen Graham Jones. That one I do still say should not be this low. Alright y'all, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!